G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is so good to see you. This is an unscheduled update because Nikon has made some formal announcements around the D6, the Z mount 20mm 1.8S and the Z mount 24 to 200 compact zoom. Just want to quickly talk about those, how they fit in my world and what I think about it. The Nikon D6. Now I've had a look over the spec sheet. Plenty of people will go through that blow by blow. What I do want to talk about is the fact that the D6 does not seem to be as big an upgrade as I had hoped for, and I suspect it's not as big an upgrade as everyone else had hoped for. The D5 was an extremely competent camera, and if we look at the spec sheet, the D6 is not really that much different. In the marketing, Nikon talk a lot about bulletproof autofocus and systems which will simply never fail you, and I'm sure that's absolutely true. This is probably the DSLR of DSLRs, although Canon might have a word to say about that. And one would think in the video intensive world that we live in today, they might have done more than just give us 4K at 30 frames per second. And if I read the spec sheet clearly, which, you know, the full specs aren't that clear, there is not even 120 frames per second. Now, it is very early days and that might change, and that could possibly change in firmware, but it is interesting that doesn't seem to be there. More importantly, what does this say to me? Because it sounds like the D5 and the D6, if you're a still shooter, you're going to get a similar experience. It's just going to be a bit faster and a bit better and so on. Obviously you can have CF Express, but I suspect CF Express will be possible with the D5. That's certainly what Nikon has talked about, and XQD is no slouch anyway. So what is it missing here that I thought would happen, which did happen with the Canon, but Nikon seemed to have left it blank, and that is higher end video spec. Nikon may simply be being logical. What is the point of making a camera that is so focused towards high end stills into a video camera? Why jam it all in there? And maybe that's saying to us, sometime in the very near future, Nikon is going to give us an even better video based Z. Perhaps the Z8/9 is going to have even better video chops than what we have today. Who knows? But the biggest disappointment for me is the ho-hum video specs out of the D6. I think the stills specs to date so far look spectacular. But we kind of want more than that today. Let's talk about this thing here. This is the Nikon Z mount 20mm 1.8S lens. This is added to the previous 4 prime lenses. We've had the 24, the 35, the 50 and the 85. Well, of course there's a 5th one, I forget the Noct, but that's in a league of its own. So the 4 1.8 lenses, this is now the 5th 1.8 lens, and it's a 20mm. Now I decided to bypass the 24mm lens because I have a Z version of that in my 24 to 70, and I'm pretty excited about that little bit extra wider 20mm in such a high quality lens, which of course is what we are finding and expecting from the Z mount S-class lenses. So this is really exciting to me. It's a lens that you can use for architectural, landscape, cityscape, vlogging and so on. It has many uses, and I'm very excited to see how and what the engineers at Nikon have achieved, because this is a more difficult lens. As we get wider and wider, lenses get more difficult to design, and all of the problems we associate with a wide lens are more difficult to control. As I've talked about in previous videos, like this one that you can see up here, where I say basically the Z lenses are just a whole new ball game, I have high expectations of this 20mm 1.8. So I look forward to seeing that very, very soon. The pricing seems to be reasonable. It's on par with the 24mm. So as the lenses seem to get more extreme, wider or longer, they're getting more expensive. So that's what we would expect. It's come in here. The price is around $1,700, which I would suspect would make the price maybe around $1,000 to $1,100 in the US. I think this will be a cracker of a lens. Owning and using the 35, the 50 and the 85, I haven't been disappointed about anything so far, and I think the bang for buck on these lenses is spectacular. And for those who haven't been following my channel for very long, I have basically suggested we see no 1.4 lenses on both Canon and Nikon's roadmap. So my conjecture is that basically 1.4 lenses are now actually going to be 1.2 lenses, and the 1.8 lenses that we've seen so far in the Nikon range are basically replacing the 1.4 lenses. So we're getting optically far superior lenses for a much lesser price. And then when they do their high-end lenses, which is what used to be a 1.4, well, they're now going to be 1.2s. So it's a very, very interesting time ahead for these lenses. And yes, I have high expectations for this 20mm. Can't wait to get my hands on it. Can't wait to show you guys. And this is the 24 to 200. How's that for a lens? 24 to 200, and it is, let me just double check, I think it's an f4 to 6.3, and it has VR in it, which means this is great for Z50 users as well. This is a lens that'll work for everyone. And if you are a Z50 user, you're going to get something like 40 to 300 mils, somewhere around there. And that makes this a cracker of a travel lens, and the quality on it will be great. Back to full frame users, 24 to 200. Now, this is exactly the lens that I would have taken with me on my 3 Capes trip, where I talked about hiking light. And I did take a 70 to 200 2.8 with me, and it was a lot of extra weight for something that didn't get used much. This lens here would be absolutely perfect for that sort of trip. So check out my video about the 3 Capes and you'll see what I'm talking about. But this lens, absolutely perfect travel lens, and I think it's coming in at a great price, something like $900 in the US to go on the Z mount. Now this lens does not have the S classification, so what that's going to mean is it's not quite as optically sharp. It probably doesn't have all of the coatings on the inside to deal with all that stuff. But you know what? I'm not worried about that, because I've been using all sorts of lenses for over 30 years of photography, and I don't mind a bit of lens flare. Some filmmakers and photographers deliberately dirty up the optics of their images just to make them just look a little bit more, I don't know, natural or organic. So I'm very excited to see this lens and play with this lens as well. It's the perfect lens to have in your back pocket when you're going to see a concert, or you're watching your kid play basketball or baseball or whatever. It is fantastic, and I think it's a really important lens for Nikon to have out for general consumption users. This is just a great all-rounder lens, which is going to sit quite nicely side by side with the 24 to 70. In other words, I would say some people could just buy this lens, the 24 to 200, because I think it will be good. So that's a very exciting lens. There's not a clear timeline, I don't think, on when these lenses are arriving, but I suspect, based on the majority of what we've heard so far, not including the 70 to 200 2.8, we will probably see it shipping in the next month or so. So that's very exciting. So to wrap up, we have the D6, which I have to say is not as much of a cracker as I had hoped it to be. It feels a bit more like a D5S. I bought the D3S and thought, well, it's a very minor upgrade. Well, this largely feels like a minor upgrade. So be it. It's Nikon's last flagship high-speed DSLR. Maybe they just ran out of steam on it. I'm not sure. And all their efforts are going into the Z. Maybe that's what's happening. The 20mm, great lens, excited. It's going to fit in the kit really well. Loving what Nikon are doing with these, and look forward to showing that to you. And then finally the 24 to 200. the all-rounder of a lens, which will work on a Z50, a Z6 and a Z7. How can we go wrong? This is kind of a lens that almost everybody needs. So even if you're a pro, you can have a lens like this when you're just out with the family and you only want to take one lens with you. I think it's great. I think it's going to be very, very popular. And I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the D6, the 20mm 1.8s, and the 24-200? I am excited by those two lenses, not so much by the D6. That's life. We don't always get what we want. All right, everybody, I'll wrap it up there. This is just a quick news flash. This video has bumped this video coming here, which was the live, not live broadcast. That will come in another couple of days, probably on the weekend. It is all edited and finished, and it was going to go up now, but this video is going up now because this is exciting news. As always, it is so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here today. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe. Please share, it makes us all smarter. Please like, because it helps get the word out there. And if you'd like to see more of me right now, there's over 150 episodes that you can click on by clicking on the Madhuam Photography just there. And of course, visit us in our Melbourne gallery. We would love to see you. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I'll see you again very soon, and give me your thoughts.